So recently a subscriber asked about what my watering regimen or how I treat my trimmed roots or degrafts, and I guess I'll just make a video on it. With my experiment that I did for leaving the roots intact versus trimming the roots, I've settled on always trimming the roots when I repot. Since I use 100% gravel, I can't really make a hole so that it stays open so that I can put the roots in, and I would just damage the roots more than just trimming them back completely. And with degrafts like this one, you can see it's red, but that has nothing to do with rot or anything. This was cut back completely, and I keep removing flesh until there's no more of the rootstock, and I just place it on. This was it's not rooting powder, it's just, I would think, some composition, probably some sulfur or something, but it's just a powder, and it seals the callus quickly, and I simply just place it on top after a few days on top of the soil. And from here, once I decide to put it on top of the soil after a few days, I usually leave it for around a week or more, but this is completely calloused. Again, this is completely calloused, and I just top water as usual with the rest of my collection. I do this with all my degrafts. I like to leave them 1 month without any water, but even if they don't have a root system yet, I top water as usual, as if it's just a regular part of my collection. And I never have issues with rot, but again, my conditions and my soil substrate is different than the majority. My substrate completely dries in 2 weeks in cool weather, and probably a week in summer conditions. So just to show how I do it, you can see again, this is the degraft. This has already been watered once, but I just place it on top of the soil, and I just water it as if it had a root system, and I just water it completely. This one's probably too small to survive, but this was also a degraft. And again, just place it on top and I water. I don't wait for roots to appear before watering. Here's another one. And I just water it as usual. I like to wait usually a month before watering, but this one was only, I think, a few days, maybe a week of being completely dry. But again, I callus it quicker with the powder that I have. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have any rooting hormones in it, but if you did, it would callus quicker since it seals the root. And waiting a month is great, but you can always just water as you normally would. My collection tends to get a weekly watering when it's really hot, and every 2 to 4 weeks when it's winter. So that's the regular watering schedule that I have, and I don't treat them any differently. Here's my other degraft. Everything just gets watered like the rest of my collection on the same schedule and everything. Many growers like to wait until there's an actual root system. The only thing I don't do is I don't fertilize the substrate. The rest of my collection, I put the salt fertilizers. This one is because I don't have any more room, but that's the only thing I don't do with this rooting tree, is I don't add fertilizer since it won't uptake it. I do apply foliar fertilizer when I do it to the rest of my collection, and that's it. I just water as normal. Every week I tend to water my collection, and with the Degrafts it's no exception. And yeah, that's it. From what I've observed, not for water therapy, which was a big thing a while back, you don't put it directly in water unless you're going to grow it completely hydroponic. With my semi-hydroponic, again, it's the same thing. You place it on the soil and you allow the roots to go down and reach the water reserve. When the substrate is moist, it tends to draw the roots out quicker, in my experience. And yeah, that's it. And one more thing, when I trimmed the roots, I placed them the same exact day, just a few hours after cutting. I didn't allow the roots to callus or dry, but I placed them in 100% dry substrate. So there's also that. It needs to be dry initially, obviously, so it could callus. And this is just how I do it. Especially if you're a new grower, you should take advice from multiple sources. This is just one way that a single grower does it. Everyone has a slightly different variation. You should try a few before you set yourself to one exact growing method. I've tried a few different methods over the years, and I've just changed my growing style to a more carefree. If it survives, great. If not, it should have died because it's weak. That's how I see plants. I'm not a commercial grower. This is more of a hobby and a personal interest. So take that in mind. If you want the highest success rate, it may be a bit slower, but you should allow it to dry maybe a month before even placing into the substrate. And even then waiting a few months until you see active new growth. I personally have noticed that you don't need to wait that long, but especially if you're a commercial grower or if you're just starting out and you're scared to lose some of your collection, consider other options.